Next, on Currents News, countdown to Election Day with millions of ballots already cast. Do you know what your options are? What if you change your mind? We're breaking down the twists and turns in this year's election. Then, the controversial allegations surrounding Joe Biden's son Hunter, what his former business partner is saying about his business dealings overseas. Plus, Philadelphia erupts in violence over a fatal police shooting, the violence spreading to the streets of Brooklyn. A full report's ahead. And celebrating Lady Liberty on the anniversary of her dedication. We'll tell you how you can be part of the festivities virtually. The news starts right now. The lines may be long, but Americans are turning up early and voting in record numbers, and there's still a week to go. So far, an estimated 70 million votes have already been cast, with 82 million expected by Tuesday. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. With 6 days to go to Election Day, it seems everyone wants to make sure their vote is counted. There are several ways to go about voting in this presidential election amid a pandemic, and you can even change your mind.
People are excited to vote for a variety of reasons, motivated by the candidates and motivated by just the need to do it.
That may be why early voters are seeing such long lines from Indianapolis, Indiana to Madison, Wisconsin and Brooklyn, New York. Voters in masks try to keep their distance from each other and wait to cast their ballots. While every state is different, here in New York, early voting continues through November 1st.
To make sure it's done.
I
mean, with everything questionable with people gathering and stuff, and then we wanted to make sure we voted.
And it's easy to social distance in Eau Claire, Wisconsin when you vote in a drive-through.
It'd be great if we could do this at all the elections. I mean, I think we would prefer to do it this way rather than to have to stand in line.
Here in Philadelphia, machines are counting mail-in ballots ahead of the election. The post office says right now it's too late to mail in your ballot because it may not arrive by Election Day. But most states also allow you to drop it off at a polling place or election office. And if for some reason you change your mind and want to change your vote, you might be able to before Election Day in some states. According to New York State's Board of Elections website, even if you request or cast and return an absentee ballot, you may still go to the polls and vote in person. The election law recognizes that plans change. The Board of Elections is required to check the poll book before canvassing any absentee ballot. If the voter comes to the poll site on Election Day or during early voting and votes in person, the absentee ballot is set aside and not counted. But again, the rules vary state by state, so make sure you check your state's Board of Elections website for any deadlines. Meanwhile, some are just waiting until Election Day, November 3rd, to cast their ballots, hoping the lines won't be so long because more polling places will be open. The Diocese of Brooklyn will be joining Catholics around the country as they pray for this election and want you to join in as well. The novena, spearheaded by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, is meant to help Catholics form their consciences. The closing prayer will take place the day after Election Day. That's when the U.S. bishops plan to pray that whoever wins be guided by the Holy Spirit. To help you pray along, Net TV will be broadcasting the novena. You can watch it every night before Currents News at 7 p.m. right up until Election Day on November 3rd. And be sure to tune in this Friday for a special edition of Currents News, Election 2020. We'll break down the issues facing Catholic voters with expert analysis and guidance from church leaders. That's this Friday at 7. Over the last several weeks leading up to the 2020 presidential election, 3 separate sources have come forward claiming to have emails and text messages linking the Biden family to questionable business practices with Chinese and Ukrainian companies. Currents News' Jessica Easthope takes an in-depth look at the allegations.
My son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
The timeline of unverified events dates back years. But in the final weeks before the election, Hunter Biden's alleged illicit foreign dealings are back on the debate stage, along with Joe Biden and President Trump.
His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who? The media.
In September, President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, claimed to have the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop. Then, two of Hunter's ex-business partners came forward with their own allegations. Bevan Cooney and Tony Bobulinski claimed to have texts and emails linking not only Hunter, but his father, Joe, and Uncle Jim Biden to allegedly questionable business in China and Ukraine.
On numerous occasions, it was made clear to me that Joe Biden's involvement was not to be mentioned in writing, but only face-to-face.
Bevan Cooney is currently in federal prison for securities fraud, so now the spotlight is on Tony Bobulinski, who claims Joe Biden was involved in Hunter and Biden's brother Jim's efforts to partner with a Chinese energy tycoon. Though evidence connecting Joe Biden to any alleged dodgy dealings is minimal, in the texts and emails, Hunter often makes reference to his father. Bobulinski says he calls him the big guy and my chairman.
I received an email concerning allocation of equity, which says 10% held by H for the big guy. In that email, there's no question that H stands for Hunter, big guy for his father, Joe Biden.
Former Vice President Joe Biden has unequivocally denied the allegations.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life.
Furthermore, he has said both Rudy Giuliani and Bobulinski, who is a Navy veteran, are part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
The intelligence community warned the president that Giuliani was being fed disinformation from the Russians.
Bobulinski says those claims are what motivated him to come forward.
Or Joe Biden at a public debate referencing Russian disinformation when he knows he sat face to face with me, that I was traveled around the world with his son and his brother. To say that and associate that with my name is absolutely disgusting to me.
Former Vice President Biden is insisting the allegations are nothing more than a smear campaign. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Facebook, Twitter, and Google are under fire for their censorship of the Hunter Biden story. The tech giants answered questions before a Senate Commerce Committee early Wednesday after ongoing criticism that they are showing anti-conservative bias. Earlier this month, the platforms blocked a New York Post story highlighting Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine and China, claiming they violated the site's terms of service. Dozens of protesters were arrested Tuesday night in the wake of the police-involved shooting of an armed black man. Around 200 demonstrators met in Fort Greene to protest Walter Wallace Jr.'s death. Police had responded to a call about a man with a knife Monday afternoon. Video online shows Wallace walking toward the officers as they backed away. The Philadelphia police claiming they were telling Wallace to drop the knife. According to Wallace's father, the 27-year-old with a history of mental illness was then shot by officers 10 times. Since that shooting, there have been massive protests in Philadelphia. For the second night in a row, violent demonstrations and widespread looting have erupted in the city. Several hundred members of the National Guard have been deployed to the city at the request of Philadelphia County. The Wallace family is calling for peace.
This is where we live, and that's the only community resource we have. If we take all the resource, burn it down, we don't have anything. I believe in the justice system. We got good cops, and we also got bad cops. So we all got to be whole accountable for what we do in life.
A law enforcement source says the two officers involved in the shooting are on desk duty for now. A group of pediatricians says the treatment of migrant children at the U.S. border fits all the criteria in the UN Convention Against Torture. The article published in the online journal Pediatrics says children separated from their families suffered physical and psychological trauma that will linger for years. The doctors are now urging the American Academy of Pediatrics to take the case to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Poland's conservative leader is calling for his followers to defend Polish churches. This after protesters began to gather outside of Catholic churches chanting obscenities. Last week, Poland's top court tightened the country's already restrictive abortion laws, which led to the demonstrations. Meanwhile, the head of Poland's Catholic Church called for calm and respect for churches, and Pope Francis sent a message of support.
Chiedo a Dio di suscitare nel cuore di tutti il rispetto della vita dei nostri fratelli, specialmente dei più fragili, indefessi, e di dare forza a coloro che la colgono e se ne prendono cura, anche quando ciò richiede un amore eroico. Dio vi benedica.
The Pope made the comments during his general audience. An update now on the sex abuse trial at the Vatican. While a student at St. Pius Seminary, Father Gabriele Martinelli, is accused of abusing one of his peers, the Vatican Criminal Tribunal has now agreed to also charge the seminary and the priests who run it for their alleged negligence in this case. Another priest, the rector at the time, is also facing charges, accused of failing to report the abuse. There's a lot more news headed your way. Hurricane Zeta is barreling into the Gulf Coast, beleaguered residents hunkering down for another thrashing. Plus, COVID cases top 500,000 in New York State. What SUNY schools are doing to keep college students safe. And the Statue of Liberty, dedicated 134 years ago today. How you can be part of the celebration next.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
Gulf Coast residents are bracing for yet another hurricane. Zeta is bearing down just over 2 weeks after Hurricane Delta made landfall. Mandatory evacuations have been issued along some coastal areas. Zeta is expected to cause 4 to 8 feet storm surges with rain and wind gusts potentially reaching 60 miles per hour in the Blue Ridge Mountains. New York State has recorded over 500,000 confirmed COVID cases and more than 2,000 new cases in a single day, according to Governor Cuomo, the single highest number in months. And as the holidays approach, parents are torn about in-person learning on college campuses. The results of a Pew Research study show that parents are split, with roughly half thinking it's a good idea. Researchers say the results are a reflection of the divide on views of the virus on a much larger scale. Despite unease from Americans over returning to campus, parents of students in the SUNY system can rest easy. Before they can return home for the holidays, they will now be required to get tested. Fadia Patterson has the details.
Students like Sekou Tori and Brandon Reynolds are all for a new SUNY policy in which students must get tested for COVID-19 before leaving for Thanksgiving.
My family, specifically, they don't have the best immune system. Both my parents are sick, so I don't want to bring it to them.
I believe it's for everybody's safety, and that's basically the bottom line.
Now 64 colleges and universities within the system must come up with plans to test 140,000 students by November 5th. Nearly 3,150 positive COVID-19 cases were reported among SUNY students and staff this fall. SUNY Chancellor Jim Malatra says that at the start of the school year, not all students at SUNY were tested for COVID-19. For Thanksgiving break, he is insisting on changing that.
That would be really stupid to have everybody just go home without COVID testing.
It just matters a lot to me because I work at a grocery store at home, and so I don't want to be exposing everyone in the town.
If you are taking at least one class, working and using on-campus facilities, you are required to follow the mandate. Anyone who tests positive will have to isolate and quarantine for 2 weeks.
As many of our students are going back home, we want to give our families and our students and their families that they're coming over for Thanksgiving and other things confidence that we are maximizing all of our public health protections.
The SUNY chancellor also says that it is possible that students will be required to have COVID tests before they return for the start of the spring semester, but that has not been finalized.
That was Fadia Patterson reporting. Most SUNY campuses will switch to all remote learning after the Thanksgiving break under previously announced plans. Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens is getting into the holiday spirit while helping folks in need. The organization holding a Halloween-themed pop-up food pantry, handing out 1,000 boxes of food to the less fortunate at Our Lady of Angels in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. The staff dressed in costumes to celebrate. Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens has served nearly 35,000 people per month during the pandemic. As the pandemic rages on, most people are hoping for a vaccine to end the chaos. Researchers are in a mad dash to get one out to the public. But what goes into making a vaccine? Mandy Gaither is here to answer that question.
It's a complicated process. Each step of creating a vaccine involves a lot of small details, each of which take time.
And at the end of the day, that's really what you want, a vaccine that not only is efficacious, but also is safe.
Dr. Jennifer Pancorbo knows all about vaccines in her role at NC State's Biomanufacturing Training and Education Center. She says the first step is design. Here, researchers learn about the virus, how it spreads, attacks, and takes over the body. Once that's understood, scientists can find a place to stop the virus along its pathway.
So that's what companies are trying to do, trying to use genetic materials to help the body find their path to the pathogen.
Next comes manufacturing. First, what's called upstream process, where she says researchers grow cells and produce the vaccine component or active ingredient that will be put into the vaccine. It then goes to the downstream process where the vaccine component is purified, separated, and put into the final formulation, one that is stable, ready to use, and easy to transport.
And that's how you end up with a vaccine in a vial or in a syringe that travels around the world in a fairly stable manner.
I'm Mandy Gaither.
It's a big day for the Statue of Liberty. On this day in 1886, Lady Liberty was dedicated. She was a gift to the U.S. from France and has since become a global icon and one of the most visited places in the world. But because of the pandemic, the National Monument is only partly open right now. Stephen Briganti, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation, joins us now to tell us how we can celebrate this day even from home. And first off, Stephen, the Statue of Liberty is a huge tourist hotspot, so that's a lot of money lost without those tourists. How has funding been through the pandemic?
Well, it's been very sad. We're averaging about less than 10% of our normal visitation. Of course, the statue was closed. Both islands were closed from mid-March until they had different opening dates in August and September. But usually we get 4.5 million people, and we're not going to come close to that this year with tourism not coming to New York. It's really quite a sad day, but happy that it's the statue's birthday.
Right, bittersweet. The grounds and the museum are now open at limited capacity, but we can still tour Lady Liberty virtually, right? Tell us about that.
Well, you know, before I tell you about that, it's actually a good time to come to the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island because you have the place to yourself.
Right.
The weekends are a bit busier than the weekdays, but I really encourage everybody to come and while the weather is still okay, and you can see almost everything. So your question was, what are we doing to engage people while the monuments are closed?
Right.
And because there is this universal interest in the Statue of Liberty and what it stands for and what its history is, we have started a program where people can sketch their vision, either a copy of the Statue of Liberty or how they see the Statue of Liberty. They can spend their time creating their vision of the Statue of Liberty and sending it to us as part of an educational program.
Yeah, how did you come up with that idea?
Well, we wanted a way to engage people, and what better way than to ask you and your listeners, how do you see the Statue of Liberty? You said it's a universal icon. It is. Millions of people come from all around the world to see it. No matter where you travel in the world, unfortunately we can't travel right now, but when you can, the Statue of Liberty is America's symbol, New York's symbol. And how do you see it? How do you've been raised with it your entire life? And since none of us are less than 134, it's always been here with us. And what is our vision of it today?
Right. And I know you can go to Liberty Island, you could go in the museums right now, but you can't actually go into the statue, right? So that's where those virtual tours come in, right?
Yes, and it's a wonderful virtual tour. We did this as part of the opening of our new Liberty Museum, which we opened in May of 2019, and then shut down in March of this year, sadly. But you can tour the inside of the statue. Go to statueofliberty.org, and you'll see a number of things there that you can do. but one of the most interesting is to take that tour on your own.
All right, so really quickly, why is the Statue of Liberty and us having it so important?
The Statue of Liberty has become the symbol of America, the symbol of freedom, the symbol of welcome, the symbol of openness and inclusiveness. This is what we want for people all over the world, and by the way, what people all over the world want. And they see it in the symbol of the Statue of Liberty.
All right, Stephen Briganti from the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
And if you would like to learn more about the Statue of Liberty and have access to educational resources and virtual tours, head on over to statueofliberty.org. Still to come on Currents News, college students who survived COVID-19 are doing their part to help defeat the virus, and how one Queens neighborhood is remembering a beloved pastor, Monsignor John Tosi, next. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. A beloved pastor is being honored by the neighborhood he served. A community board deciding that a street near St. Luke's Parish in Whitestone, Queens will be named after their former pastor, Monsignor John Tosi. Monsignor Tosi died this past May after battling a coronary condition. And finally tonight, one entire college campus is doing their part to end the pandemic. They're asking all students who tested positive for COVID, all 3,000 of them, to donate their plasma. Isabel Lawrence reports from Madison, Wisconsin.
When UW-Madison junior Elizabeth KITSLAAR returned to campus for the school year, she and her roommates took precautions.
We've just been getting tested super consistently to ensure that we don't have it. And then when I started developing symptoms, kind of knew I had it.
KITSLAAR tested positive for coronavirus about 2 weeks ago. She felt like she had a cold with muscle aches and fatigue.
I was kind of in shock at first because no one super close to me has had the virus yet. And so it really just struck really close to home.
Now that she's been in isolation and is recovered, she's giving back.
I'm super excited to be able to donate my plasma and help others recover from the virus.
KITSLAAR is giving blood for the Badgers Give Back blood drive.
That blood will all be tested for coronavirus antibodies. If it's positive, then they will extract the plasma and be able to use that in patients here in Wisconsin.
Dr. William Hartman, principal investigator for COVID-19 clinical studies at UW, said those antibodies can give the immune boost needed to fight the virus.
If you have recovered from COVID-19, you've got this superpower that you get to give back, and you get to help somebody within our state here who's currently sick with COVID-19 and needs your help.
Turning a bad diagnosis into something good.
It's kind of an upside to having COVID and being able to help others in the community.
That was Isabel Lawrence reporting. A sophomore named Brody Andes organized the drive. Students have until the end of the day on Thursday to donate. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.